speaking with their lips, but their hearts are far from him. So Genesis chapter 7, verse 1. And Yahweh said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for I have seen thee righteous before me in this generation. Again, speaking of Adam. Okay. Verse 2. Of every clean beast thou shalt take of 3 by 7s, the male and the female, and of the beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. So the 7s is for a reason. Those are clean, and those are for sacrificial purposes. And the 2 of the unclean are for the repopulation of the earth. Again, Yahweh gave us laws that we are to keep, laws, statutes, and commandments. And for those of us that are eating clean, we have made a separation from the unclean and the clean. And again, this is proof that Enoch was walking with men in the beginning, and that he was teaching men. He was the first prophet to walk the earth. And this is proof that the Torah has always been with men. It's nothing new. This is why he's being commanded to do this. And they knew the clean from the unclean. So again, for the regular reader that doesn't know Torah, they say this is a discrepancy, not knowing what the purpose of the 7 were. Again, 7 being clean beasts, not only that, but 7 is the number of completion. Verse 3, of the fowls also of the air by 7s, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of the earth. Verse 4, for yet 7 days, spiritual completeness, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, 40 days is a probational period. We see the Messiah goes through this. We see that the rain will be upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. It goes on to say, and every living substance that I made will I destroy from the face of the earth. Verse 5, and Noah did accordingly unto all that Yahweh commanded him. Verse 6, and Noah was 600 years old. Now think about this. Noah's 600 years old when the floods of the water were upon the face of the earth. That's not, he's not a young man, right? He's up there in age. Where was I? Yeah, I went to I totally lost my place. I don't know how I did that. And he came to, where did I go? Noah was 600 years when the flood was upon the earth. Okay, verse 7. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with them, into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Verse 8. Of the clean beast, and of the beasts that are not clean, and of the fowls, and of every living thing that creepeth upon the earth. There went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as Yahweh commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, that same day, were all the fountains of the great deep. Again, great deep is the waters of the abyss, were broken up, and the windows of the heaven were opened. So notice all of the 7s again there. This spiritual completion and these numbers are all throughout Scripture. Verse 12, and the rain was upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. In the selfsame day Noah entered, Noah's name meaning rest, and Shem meaning breath, and Ham meaning sunburnt, and Japheth meaning enlargement, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and Noah's sons' 3 wives, and them into the ark. Verse 14, they and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle of the earth and after its kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth and after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, and every bird of every sort. And verse 15, and they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. Again, this is just re-establishing what was established in Genesis chapter 1. Verse 16, and they that went in, male and female, of all flesh, as Yahweh commanded him, and Yahweh shutteth him in. So again, he was sealed into the ark. And again, I've said this before, but the beginning of this book declares the end of the book, and the end of the book declares the beginning of the book. And Yahweh does not change. So let's look at what we just read, because it says in verse 16, and they that went in, male and female of all flesh, as Yahweh commanded him. And it says, and Yahweh shut him in. It says Lord. I'm going to say that this angel that shut him in was the Messiah. Matthew 25, verse 10 through 12. Again, this is about the 10 virgins. And it says, and while they went to buy their knowledge, the Torah, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went into the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Master, Master, open to us. But he answered and he said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Okay, so there's one witness of them being sealed into this ark. And remember what pitch meant. Revelation 7, 3 through 10. Here's another witness of sealing Yahweh's people. Saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed of them 144,000 according to the tribes of Israel. All right, verse 17. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased, and bare up the ark, and lifted it up above the earth. Now, where else are we going to see a flood? We're seeing the flood here in the beginning. And as I mentioned, we're going to see a flood of Satan. So go to Revelation chapter 12, verse 15. And it says, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, the remnant who's carried away into the wilderness, that he may cause her to be carried away of a flood. This is not a water flood like Noah's flood. This is a flood of nations, people, Satan's offspring, that are going to go after those that are keeping the commandments of the Most High. Let's get a couple witnesses to that. Psalm 18, 3 through 5. I will call upon Yahweh, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. The sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of the ungodly men made me afraid. The sorrows of hell compassed me about, and the snares of death prevented me. Okay, so this is in the book of Psalms. It's in the book of Isaiah. It's in the book of Daniel. It's in the entire Bible. Isaiah 59, 18 through 20. According to their deeds, accordingly, he will repay fury to his adversaries, recompense to his enemies. And to the islands he will repay recompense. So shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun, when the enemy shall come in like a flood, and the Spirit of Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him. Against who? Satan in his flood that we just read about in Revelation 12:15. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression, in Jacob saith Yahweh. Who's the Redeemer? Well, the Messiah. All right, let's look at Daniel chapter 9, verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy this city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. So again, we're seeing a biblical flood in the beginning, the same way we're going to see a flood of nations in the end. And we are already witnessing this flood of nations. This is not something that people should be taking lightly right now. All right, back to Genesis 7. Are we in Genesis? Yeah, Genesis 7, verse 18. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went up in the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that was moved upon the earth, both of fowl and cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. And in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land died. Verse 23. And of every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle and creeping thing and fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Where have we seen that before? 150 days. So it rains for 5 months. Does that sound familiar? Turn to Revelation chapter 9, verse 5. Speaking of the locust army. And to them it was given that they should not unalive them, but that they should be tormented for 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. Again, if you don't know the parable of the fig tree, I suggest you make yourself familiar. And if you want to understand the book of Revelation, you need to understand the beginning of this book, because it will reveal to you how the days are shortened in the end. Okay? Matthew chapter 24, verses 36 through 39. But of the day and the hour no man knoweth, no, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Parable of the fig tree. But as in the days of Noah, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For in the days of Noah, that were before the flood, they, the evil people, were eating and drinking, and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. And they knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So also shall the coming of the Son of Man be, by the flooding of nations. Okay? It's going to be just as in the days of Noah, only there's no water this time. It'll be a flood of nations. And it's going to be sent by the Father, the locust army. Genesis chapter 8. And Yahweh remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And Yahweh made the wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. Verse 2. The fountains also of the deep, and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from the heaven was restrained. And the waters returned from off of the earth continually. So again, the earth gave birth to water, right? It was baptizing the earth. And it's going to do the same way, this continually in verse 3. And after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated, 5 months. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, again, 7, completion, upon the mountains of Ararat. Where did the angels make their pact? In Genesis chapter 6, Mount Hermon, Mount Ararat. The same place where the nations of all nations have set up their base. Mount Ararat. The same place our Messiah transfigured. These places are very, very important in Scripture, because we're going to see when we start moving further along in Genesis that these wells that Abraham is going to dig, then Isaac will find them later on, then Jacob will find them, and a lot of very interesting things take place at these wells. So we need to have a good understanding of what it is we're reading and why, because all of this is in alignment with what it is we're trying to learn and understand here. Okay? And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the mountaintops seen. And it it came to pass at the end of 40 days, the end of the probation or the testing period, that Noah opened the window of the ark, which he had made, and he sent forth a raven. Listen very closely. He sends forth a raven, right? This raven, which went forth, unclean beast, went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. And you're going to see something very interesting. The raven does not return. Why? Probably because the raven has found some food to eat, right? Verse 8, and he also sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. What does the dove represent? Right? We have a clean and an unclean. We have a raven, which is a vulture, okay? And we have a dove, which represents the spirit, okay? Verse 9, but when the dove found no rest for the sole of his foot, and she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters on the face of the whole earth, and he put forth his hands and took her and pulled her into the ark. Again, you can look this up in Deuteronomy 14:11, the clean and unclean. Verse 10, and he stayed yet another 7 days, completing the seventh day in the seventh month, completing that 7. And again, he sends forth a dove out of the ark, verse 11, and the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. What does the olive represent for the people of Israel? The anointing, right? It's the anointing of kings. It's a special oil, right? So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. Verse 12, and he stayed yet another 7 days, spiritual completion, and sent forth another dove, which returned not again any more. So now Noah knows that the waters are dried up. And it came to pass in the 600th year, in the first year of the first month, of the first day of the month, that the waters were dried up from off of the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. So this is one solar year from beginning to end that all this stuff took place. Okay? And Yahweh spake unto Noah, saying, go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons wives from thee. So this is Yahweh telling them to exit the ark. Verse 17, bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle and of creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Just like in the beginning, being fruitful and multiplying. Verse 16, and Noah went forth, his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him, and every beast and every creeping thing and every fowl and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth, after their kinds went forth out of the ark, just again as in the beginning. Verse 20, and Noah builded an altar unto Yahweh. Now, this is super important. The building of the altar, or giving thanks to the Father. You're going to notice that all of Yahweh's children do this. From Abraham, Isaac to Jacob, and so on. All of the people of Yahweh know when Yahweh brings you through something, it's up to us whether or not we choose to give him thanks. But I'm telling you right now, it would be a good idea to do this, okay? It'd be a good idea to recognize all of the blessings that Yahweh brings into your life. Because he brought them through, which was a pretty rough ride. I'm willing to bet that was not fun, because we see that Noah has to remind the Father that they are terrified on the ark, right? And we see that the Father hears Noah and remembers Noah, and now he's going to make a covenant with Noah. So Noah builds an ark, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. This is why there is the argument that there is something wrong with how many animals were taken onto the ark. Again, people don't understand the sacrificial part of this. Verse 21, and Yahweh smelled a sweet savor. And Yahweh said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. This is the rainbow covenant. Verse 22, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Okay? Nothing is going to change. Nothing has changed from the beginning until when tribulation starts. Understand that. This is a promise by our Father, that everything, the way that he has appointed it, after this flood up until tribulation, will remain the same. This is part of understanding the parable of the fig tree, and this is also part of understanding what Yahweh says he will do to this earth during tribulation, and who will be here for that. All right, the great reset, the flood, continued. Genesis chapter 9. And Yahweh blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish on the earth. So authority is given back to the original man, Adam. Again, we have to understand that there is a protection out of these three sons. Only one of them will our Messiah come through the bloodline of. Okay? Verse 2. And the fear of you and the dread of you, talking about the original man, but speaking to Noah, shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, and upon every moving thing of the earth, and upon all of the fishes of the sea. And in your hand they are delivered. So power is given to Noah and his family to subdue the earth once again. Verse 3, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given unto you all things. Question, did Yahweh instruct Noah to partake in the unclean animals, or did Noah already know that he was to take on the animals for sacrifice and the clean and unclean for repopulation? So when people say that this says, well, he just said that every meat is good. No. You guys that are saying that do not understand that these people were living by the laws and instructions of Yahweh, which is why Noah was on this ark to begin with. He was perfect, walking perfectly before the Father. Verse 4, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. As in the days of Noah, so also shall the return of the Son of Man be. Why is he saying this about the blood? Now listen very closely to what I'm about to say. So we know the Spirit lives in the blood, right? Verse 5, and surely your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of every beast, will I require it in the hand of every man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Ha-Adam. Why did he say beast? Do animals not eat flesh and blood? I believe they do. So why is he saying, surely your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of every beast, will I require it, and at the hand of every man, and the hand of every man's brother? This is why we have to read this slowly, because Yahweh's saying something here. So again, if we see a lion, for instance, does a lion stop and prepare a meal so that there's no blood in it? Does a lion drain out the blood of an animal before he devours it? Of course not. So if you're going to say that right here in verse 5, that Yahweh's going to require the life of a beast, that's not speaking about an animal. Hate to say that, but I'm going to preach truth, whether people like it or not. Verse 6, whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of Yahweh made he man. Ha-Adam and Eth-Ha-Adam. There's a difference. Both are made in the image of the Father, with the exception of the beast that was just spoken about. If it doesn't say Ha-Adam and Eth-Ha-Adam. Hopefully you guys can still hear me because my signal just went out. Did you guys catch all of that? Because I lost my green light there. Just give me a thumbs up if you guys heard that. All right, good. So, say again. Okay, how long was I out? Where did we leave off? Okay, so again, verse 6, whoever sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of Yahweh made he a man, or he man, right? So what does man mean? Well, when it's speaking of the other nations outside of Israel that can cleave to Israel, it's speaking of Ha-Adam, meaning man. But when it's speaking of Adam in Genesis chapter 2, it's speaking of Eth-Ha-Adam. Two different versions, okay? So go back to Genesis 1:26 and 27. Let us create man. There you will see Ha-Adam, meaning man. When you see in Genesis chapter 2, when he creates Adam, it means Eth-Ha-Adam. There's a difference between the two. So that's what I just said. Hopefully people heard it that time. Verse 7, and you be ye fruitful and multiply, and bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. Bring forth children, repopulate the earth. He's speaking to both Ha-Adam and Eth-Ha-Adam, all nations. But we just saw that he was speaking about a beast. And this starts in Genesis chapter 3 with Satan. And then in Genesis chapter 4 with Cain. And it continues on throughout all the books. All right. Verse 9. And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you. Again, because Noah was perfect in all of his generations, but listen closely. And with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, of every beast of the earth, which is with you, from all that go out from the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of the flood, neither shall there be any more flood to destroy the earth. So again, Yahweh's flood is very clear, was by water. This was by Yahweh's doing. Yahweh destroyed his creation. Now, in the end, Satan is going to try to destroy Yahweh's creation. Once again, this is a continual fight. Verse 12, and Yahweh said, this is a token of the covenant which I make between me and between every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. This is the rainbow covenant. Again, this goes into the 7 colors of the rainbow, the 7 archangels. I'm not going to go into that because this would take this teaching in a whole nother direction. But understand there's a reason why he sets this bow in the cloud. Verse 13, I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I will bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. Now, remember, Yahweh doesn't create every cloud we see in the earth. Not today. We're seeing that man is creating a lot of clouds in the earth today. And I remember seeing a whole lot more rainbows when I was younger than what I see now. You want to know why? Because of the tic-tac-toe that's going on in the sky. Verse 15. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of flesh, and all the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. Do we see floods, flash floods? Yes. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about wiping out everything with one great flood where the mountains are covered. We will never see that again. Verse 16, and the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I might remember that for an everlasting covenant between Yahweh and every living creature of flesh that is upon the earth. So again, this is perpetual, never ending, forever. Let's look at 2 Peter verse 3, or 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. It says, "But the day of Yahweh will come as a thief in the night, and in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with a fervent heat. The earth also, and all the works that are therein, shall be burned up." Satan's offspring, guys. The wicked are going to be removed from the earth, not the righteous, the wicked. Verse 17, And Yahweh said unto Noah, "This is the token of the covenant which I shall establish between me and all flesh that is upon the earth." Let's look at Isaiah chapter 54, verses 9 through 10. Isaiah 54, 9 through 10. "For this is the waters of Noah upon me. For I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth. So I have sworn that I would not be wroth with thee, nor rebuke thee. For the mountains shall depart, and the hills shall be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith Yahweh, that hath mercy on thee." Who is he speaking to here? The children of Israel, and all of those who were created in Genesis chapter 1. Again, all the nations. Do you think, in this case, do you guys think that it is important for us to be obedient to the Father? Because many are saying that this has no bearing in Scripture, what we're talking about, what Satan has done, and what Satan continues to do to try to destroy mankind from the earth. And I've noticed in my own walk with the Father, when we're obedient, when we keep the Sabbath day holy, when we do what he asks us to do, then we start to see that knowledge increases. And we start reading this book for the way that it was written and who it was written to. The Messiah made it clear that many will not understand the words of this book. Why? Well, it goes back to Genesis chapter 1. We were predestined. He knew us before this earth. And we see the prophets showing that there was a great shaking of the nations that existed prior, that there was a earth age that was prior to this earth age. Again, why would we limit the Father and say, oh, there's no way he could have created something different? There's no way there could be anything other than what he tells us in this book. Again, I'm not adding to the book. I'm just saying, let's not limit what Yahweh has done before we came along. Again, we are his creation, but to say that we're all he created, that's foolish. All right. Verse 18. "And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth." Now listen to this. "And Ham is the father of Canaan." Why would it say that in verse 18? I'll read it again. "And the sons of Noah that went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan." Verse 19. "These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread." So now it's going to give us the lineage of Noah and his children, but not just yet, right? First it's going to tell us something that takes place. And it made it very clear that Ham is the father of Canaan. Okay? Now let's start in verse 19. Verse 20. "And Noah began to be a husbandman, a farmer." Remember Genesis chapter 2. A farmer. "And he planted a vineyard." You know what it takes to plant a vineyard? You have to farm. "And he drank of the wine, and he was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent." Verse 22. "And Ham, the father of Canaan," so this is Noah's own son, not Ham's son. This is Noah's own son, "saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without." Now, I already know what people believe this says, okay? I'm going to tell you what I believe it says. And I'm going to go through the scriptures, Leviticus 18:8, and then I'm going to explain to you why I believe it was different. Leviticus 18:8. Thy nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover, for it is thy father's nakedness. Okay? Now skip to me with Leviticus 20, verse 11. And the man that lieth with his father's wife hath uncovered his father's nakedness, right? Both of them shall surely be put to death, and their blood shall be upon them. All right, here's my problem with people saying that Ham went into Noah's wife, his mother, all right? First off, we know that it said that Noah was drunk, okay? It didn't say anything about Noah's wife being drunk, number one. And it doesn't tell us anywhere that Noah's wife became pregnant with Ham's child. And we understand that Sodom and Gomorrah is about to be mentioned here in this book of Genesis. So what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah, and who are the descendants that come off of this boat that eventually lead to that same thing again, right? So knowing what we know in Leviticus, and I know Leviticus is after Genesis, but my point being is they were already doing the works of the law. They were already sacrificing animals. They already knew the Father's will because of Enoch. Just based on my own studies and my own understanding, this would mean that if Ham went in, he would have had to forcefully take Noah's wife, his mother, right? And if Noah's wife was willing, then according to the law, they both would have been unalive. But there's no record of that happening. So when it says, we'll continue reading. It says, and Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and they went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father, not their mother. And their faces were backwards, and they saw not their father's nakedness. Doesn't mention anything about Noah's wife here. Verse 24, and Noah awoke from his wine, and he knew what his younger son had done unto him. Again, yes, this could be taken that Noah's wife came to him and said, Ham did this to me, and XYZ. But again, no child was brought forth. No mention of that happening. It makes it very clear that Noah knew what his son had done unto him. Let's see. Verse 25. And Noah said, cursed be Canaan. He doesn't curse Ham. He curses Ham's son, Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. So again, if this took place with, what would be worse? I've said this before, but what would be worse? Cursing your son or cursing your son's son? If you were trying to get back at someone, and again, the father is not in what's taking place right here. Understand this, okay? And understand that it's Noah that curses Canaan. Cursing Ham's son, Canaan. Understand that it's not Yahweh that's doing this. It's Noah. But the dominion and the power of the earth is within Noah's hands, right? It was just given to him. Now listen. This is what comes after. And he said, blessed be the Elohim, Yahweh Elohim of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Yahweh shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in tents, and Shem, the tents of Shem, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, meaning that Shem will be the primary son. And Canaan shall be his servant. Okay? And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So we see that Ham sinned, and Noah curses Canaan, not Ham. And the scripture does not say that Noah's wife knew what Ham had done to her, nor is there any mention of Noah's wife being pregnant. And again, remember Genesis 6 says that there were giants in the land and thereafter. So where did this perversion come from? Ham, one of the wives of Noah's that were brought onto the ark. Ham's wife. Again, not all of these giants were giants, but some of them had the blood of the Nephilim, the Nephil, which we read about in Genesis chapter 6. This is the only logical explanation. If they were all perfect when they went onto the ark, and then all of a sudden this sin, well, it said Noah and his generations, first of all. It didn't say that his wives were perfect. It said Noah and his generations. The day of the flood, Noah's father dies, and he marries his 3 daughters, and they enter the ark. Because it was like, hurry up, the waters are coming, right? Now, we have to consider where this bloodline continues on, because we know the other nations were on the boat. We know that the other nations that existed at that time were on the boat. They were on the ark. Now we get into Genesis chapter 10, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to give you guys key points in this chapter, because to go through all of it, it's not worth it. The bloodline we're focusing on is a specific bloodline, but I do want you guys to go through this, so I'm going to go through it with you. It says in the very beginning of Genesis 10, verse 1, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth," now these are important for Japheth, just so you can establish later on what's going to happen as these families start to meet one another. And it's important to know who these are, right? And I'm only going to read some of them. We see that Gomer, Magog, Madiah, Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tiras, okay? And then it gives you the sons of Gomer, okay? Because Gomer is the firstborn to Japheth. And then the sons of Javan, because Javan was born of Gomer. And then in verse 5, we're going to see, "By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations." So we're seeing there are the Gentiles, which are come of Japheth. These are the Gentiles that are on the earth, and they are divided by their lands and their tongues and their families and their nations. Very clear. Okay, so there were Gentiles back in this time, those who fell away from following after the Most High. Why? Because they were chasing after their own gods, just like with Enos, when we read about that in Genesis chapter 4. Was it Enos in Genesis 4? Yeah, 4 leading into 5, it was Enos, right? That was the first flood that we see, and you'll read about that in the book of Jasher. Let's see. Verse 6. "And the sons of Ham were Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush," again, I'm not going to go into the sons of Cush. You guys can read that, but I want you guys to understand that Cush, in verse 8, begat Nimrod, okay? He's the focal point. "And Nimrod began to be a mighty one on the earth." Verse 9, "And he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel," confusion, Babylon. This is the meaning, confusion, Babylon. "And Erech and Akkad," again, you guys can go through this, but understand that this King Nimrod becomes a mighty hunter, and he starts off good. Okay, you'll see that he starts off good with good intentions, and then he turns evil. Okay, and again, verse 11, "Out of the land went forth Ashur, and he builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Kala." These are the Assyrians. Okay, and Rezin between Nineveh and Kala. So we're seeing this cycle of evil is going to continue. Again, it's going to continue on. But these great giants that were walking the earth prior, are no longer on the earth because they were flooded out, right? And we see in Genesis 6 that the breakdown was that Yahweh sends an angel before these giants that are on the earth, these bullies, these tyrants. Again, they're destroying the earth and the face of the earth. And so Yahweh sends an angel with a sword and creates division and makes them turn against one another while Noah's building the ark, completing the ark. So there's a lot going on, right? There's all this mixing of seed. And yet Yahweh still preserved the other nations that he created, 2 of each kind. So it's not a great deal of mystery to understand how does this continue on after the ark, after Yahweh floods the earth. Yahweh flooded the earth because the giants that were in those days were way bigger than the giants that we're going to see after, like the giants that are being fought by Moses and Joshua and so on and so forth. These are smaller giants, smaller versions of the original giants that were flooded off from the face of the earth. So while they're unaliving themselves, here comes the waters of the great deep, okay? And the windows of heaven are opened, and the flood happens. Okay, so there's a reason why we have found these great giant bones. There's a reason why the Smithsonian has been sued repeatedly for covering these, removing these remnants of these bones. And not to mention, there's a reason why there were great, huge, giant, massive trees. Remember, the men on the earth back then were super, super strong. There's a reason why we see certain men in Scripture that are able to unalive thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of men, like King David. And then, I always forget his name, the one with the long hair that cut his hair, the woman cuts his hair. He was super strong, right? Like, this is where superhero movies come from. They're established from this book. And again, Satan uses it. Samson, thank you. So we see that there's no great mystery in this. We understand that there were strong, mighty men on the earth that were both of Yahweh, because they had to be strong in order to survive, number one. Number two, we see that they were living nearly 1,000 years, and then now we're down to 80, sometimes even 40, 50, and 60, depending on the way that a man chooses to live his life, right? So let's look at Genesis chapter 4, verse 17 again. And it says, "And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after his son Enoch." Now, remember, this is Cain's firstborn, Enoch, not the 7th from Adam. And also remember what 7 represents. This is why Enoch, the 7th from Adam, that's a significant number, the number of completion. Now, notice this lineage of Cain starts building cities. And what do we see happening with Nimrod? Nimrod starts building cities, but Nimrod makes a huge mistake. All right, continuing on. And now it's going to tell us the remaining descendants that we were just reading about from Nimrod all the way down. And it says in verse 15, "And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth. And the Jebusite," again, the founders of Jerusalem, that's who the Jebusites are, right? And later on we see that David will overthrow them, and this will become Jerusalem. That's where Jebusite, the land of the Jebusite, is. But we're going to read about this later on, way later on. And the Amorite and the Girgashite, okay? And the Hivite, again, now these, again, as we're going through this, the Sidon of Heth, born of Heth, these are all remnants of the giants, because we see it says in here, it talks about the Rephaim, and all of the Hivites and the Girgashites, all of these names that Yahweh later says that he will be an enemy to, right? Verse 16, "And after were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad." So all of the ites that we just read from, beginning with Nimrod, and the Gentile nations, again, that were separated, these are all the remnants or the offsprings or the bloodlines of the giants. Verse 20, These are the sons of Ham after their families and their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So we've gone through 2 of the sons. Now we're going to go through the sons of Shem. Verse 21, unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, remember this name Eber, and the brother of Japheth, and the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, Ashur, Aphaxad, Lud, Aram. And again, now you're going to start getting the offspring of all of his children, his children's children, and on down the list. And then we're going to go to verse 25 because it's important. It says, and unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg. Peleg means division. For in the days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Okay? Now Joktan and Peleg start having their offspring. Again, this is part of Japheth's offspring. We're going to skip down to verse 31. It says, these are the sons of Shem, after their families, and after their tongues, in their lands, and after their nations. So Shem's family is the line that we're going to follow here, okay? And we'll be following the other lines as well, because we're going to see they're going to start clashing with these other lines when they get further along. Verse 32, these are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Okay? Now, we'll read Genesis chapter 11, and then I'll take a break. So this is going to be a pretty long one. All right. This is the rise of Nimrod. Okay? Genesis 11, verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. Now, remember this land of Shinar, okay? And they dwelt there. So this plain east, what they're talking about, is the Tigris and the Euphrates River, okay? And they said to one another, go to let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime, which was like cement, and they had mortar. In verse 4, and they said unto them, let us build a city and a tower, whose tower may reach up to the heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Not very smart, right? Because this is exactly what happens. Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what happens with the Nimrod building a tower trying to reach to the heavens. This is exactly what we're seeing right now. Think about what we're doing, shooting things up at the firmament. Do you think, for 1 second, if Nimrod wasn't able to build a tower in the land of Shinar that reached to the heavens without Yahweh getting upset about it, do you truly believe that anybody's going to Mars? Or that anyone's going to the moon, which we read about in Genesis chapter 1, which are placed inside of the firmament, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Inside of the first and second firmament are the stars, and inside the first firmament is the sun and the moon, because they're local. All right. Now, we've got to pay close attention, okay? Verse 5, and it says, the Lord, L-O-R-D, lowercase. So it says, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and they have begun to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Verse 7, go to, let us go down, and let there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. I hear all the time that this is where Yahweh separated the nations. No, this has nothing to do with the nations. This is them and their speech. Remember, there were people from all over the world at Shinar helping to build this tower, in the same way that there were people all around on the day of Pentecost in the New Testament, which were all of different languages. Yahweh scattered their speech to stop them from what they were doing. Verse 8. So Yahweh scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off from building the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because Yahweh did confound their language of the whole earth, and from thence did he scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. These are the generations of Shem. Okay, now it's going to go even deeper. And Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad, and 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. Now, it's going to continue. Arphaxad begats Salah, and Arphaxad has begot sons and daughters, and then Salah lives and begats Eber. Remember Eber. And Salah begat Eber and begat sons and daughters. Now, Eber, verse 16, begat Peleg. Verse 17, Eber begats Peleg and begets sons and daughters. And Peleg begats Ru. And Peleg lived and begat sons and daughters. And Ru lived and begat Shurug. And Ru, okay, so it continues on. You're going to see this same pattern. It's just telling you that each one of these children beget sons and daughters, okay? And these sons and daughters go all the way down to Terah. This is Abraham's father, okay? Terah lived 70 years and begat Abraham, Noah, and Haran. Now, these are the generations of Terah. Terah means station. Terah begat Abraham. Abraham means high father. Now, remember, Abram is his name right now, means high father. But his name will be changed along with Sarah's name. Nahor and Haran begot Lot. So, Abram is Lot's uncle, and Lot to Abram is his nephew, okay? And Haran died before his father, Terah, in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. Now remember these things, okay? And Abram and Nor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Noah's wife, Milcah. Milcah, yeah. And the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Ishka. But Sarai, which means my princes, was barren, and she had no children. And Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, okay, and his son Abram's wife, and they went forth from them, from Ur of the Chaldees, to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Now, what are they doing? They're leaving confusion. They're exiting out of Babylon, okay? And they're going into the land of Canaan. This land of Canaan is going to continually be repeated over and over and over, okay? All right. Okay, so as we continue, do not forget how Abram and Sarai are related, okay? They're from the same father, but they're not from the same mother. And this was completely normal in this time for this to take place. Now, if you did this in today's time, you would end up with a child that was mentally off or slow, if I can put it that way. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. But we're farther and farther away from the original bloodline, that now doing that is unnecessary and it's forbidden, okay? Back in this time, it was not. All right, picking up in verse 32. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Now, there's a whole story, if you want to learn more, about Abraham and his life and his relationship with his father. Terah served other gods, okay? But he did preserve the life of Abram when Abram was a child, because Satan was trying to snuff out Abram because Abram would become an important man, as we're about to see. Now, Abram destroys all of his father's idols It's actually quite a funny story if you go read it, but he makes them food and all of this stuff. And because they're wood and stone, they don't speak, they don't do anything. Abram pursues Yahweh. So if you want to go into the book of Jasher, you can read all about all of the in-between of the stuff that's going on right here with this. But again, I don't need those books to prove what it is that I'm trying to prove.